All right. It's right at the top of the hour, so we will get started just to make sure that you have the full time. I want to welcome everybody to Tips for Starting Your On Air Career with Peter Johanns. We're very happy to have him today talking to you guys. Just to give you a little bit of a background on him, he is an associate professor of television and radio in the Roy H. Park School of Communications at Ithaca College. He is the co founder of TVcoaches.com, a company specializing in developing on air talent. He has over 150 of his former students who are working right now on air in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Please welcome to our pro session today, Peter Johanns.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for taking some time out here to join me on Zoom and here for the Student Television Network. I've been attending this for the last couple of years, and even though I'm disheartened that it wasn't being able to be held in person this year, I'm glad that we were able to do this at least virtually, and I'm very honored to participate. And thank you for coming and attending my Zoom presentation. If you do have any questions, as I see that is being put in the chat, please do so, and I will do my best to answer them for you as possible. I've put together a bit of a presentation here that I'd like to take you through. As said, I'm a professor at Ithaca College in the Park School of Communications. We have about 2,000 students just in our School of Communications. I teach television and radio, and I've been here this is my 20th year teaching. Before that, I worked professionally as a news anchor and reporter after I finished graduate school, and then transitioned over into multi-camera television directing and producing, as well as producing documentaries rather for PBS. I enjoyed teaching at Ithaca College very much because I get to go to a TV studio every day, and that is my classroom. Television is my passion. I have about 7 televisions in my house, and they're all tuned to something different, seemingly all the time. And so today I just wanted to kind of take you through a little bit of, if you have aspirations of being an on-air personality, whether it be in news, sports, weather, entertainment, TikTok, what are some ways to kind of help prepare for the launch of that career? I myself have just ventured into the wonderful world of TikTok just a few months ago, and I've discovered it's a very nice outlet for my rather unique sense of humor. But today I'll be talking more about being an on-air kind of news or sports or entertainment personality. So, as mentioned, I have a number of students who work on air in all aspects of the country and in what we call markets in the country, basically very different cities. And so I'm going to do the wonderful Zoom share here, and hopefully this will work appropriately. So these are this is just a sampling of the amount of students I've had over the years at Ithaca College who are now making their careers as on-air personalities. And so I think an important thing to understand about being on air is really more of an art form than a science, meaning that there's not necessarily this kind of rule book or a specific formula that you have to follow in order to be on air. People who do this professionally and do this for a living make it look easy because they're professional artists. And a lot of my students who come to Ithaca College and come to the Park School of Communications have watched people on air, and they think it's easy. A lot of times it's just looking into a camera and reading a script, right? But it really is so much more of that, and understanding kind of all of the nuances of the art form and the development of the art form, and that it takes a long time to develop. And so these people that you see on air, who make this, who make a living do so because they are true professional artists. Amy is one of my students, who was very talented as a student when she came in, and was hired to work in Washington, D.C. After she graduated. The
Peter,
goal,
Peter, real
yes,
quick, are you showing something on the screen?
I am.
Okay, I can't see it. I don't know if anyone else can. Uh,
And any participants,
you
can you
guys
see
can see
that?
it? Okay, because I couldn't see it, so I was just
Okay.
kind of a little worried there.
Well,
Okay,
I thank you very much.
okay, sorry about
Okay,
that.
see
Okay,
a lot of I can see it. It's good
okay, good,
in the
good.
chat. And so the goal is to engage a mass audience that you don't see. Kind of similar to what's happening right now in the Zoom session, but certainly a lot more people. And it's kind of an odd thing to be able to connect with an audience, in a mass audience, through a camera or a microphone, an inanimate object, and being able to talk to somebody and make a connection with that person. And even though that we are dealing with a mass audience, a large amount of people that we're looking to engage, the approach really has to be that I am talking to one person, that I'm looking to engage with one person, and the content that I'm providing. And as I said, it's a bit of a skill, and it's an odd thing to be able to look at a lens and or speak into a microphone and be able to, as I said, make a connection with a member of an audience. Cody is another one of was one of my early students that I had when I started teaching at Ithaca College, and he's currently in Kansas City, Missouri. One thing you should understand is that a lot of the students, and a lot of the students that I present to you, will work in a variety of places. And so they'll work for a period of time, maybe 2 to 3 places. And so Cody started in Louisiana when he graduated, and then worked down there for 2 years in a small market or a smaller city. And typically the goal is to work to a bigger market or bigger cities. And Cody worked in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Albany, New York, and then now currently is an anchor in Kansas City. Let's see here. See. Again, the art form takes years to develop. I do teach a class at Ithaca College focused on air performance, and I tell all my students that, when we get done with class here, you're not going to know everything about being an on-air performer rather. That this art form takes years to be able to do it, so it comes across as naturally. There's an old adage, and I think that this is very true when it comes to being an on-air performer, is that you have to put in 10,000 hours of time in order to become accomplished at something. And now 10,000 hours sounds like a very long time, but in the scope of kind of the development of a long career, that 10,000 hours can come by very quickly. And so this is something that you have to recognize, that it takes a long time to develop, and that you need to practice the skills daily. And I talk to my students and draw the analogy of an Olympic athlete, for example. We all know that Olympic athletes just don't show up at the Olympics and they perform, but they've done so through years of training and various competitions, and by going to the gym and exercising those muscles every day. And this is, commonplace as well with being an on camera performer. And so Sierra, again, one of my students, a recent graduate of 2017, she graduated from Ithaca College, started her career rather, in Savannah, Georgia, and has recently been hired in Columbus, Ohio, to be an anchor and a reporter there. One way to do this by practicing is to read scripts out loud over and over. And the notion of practicing every day, the people who don't understand or don't who don't necessarily understand the development of this will think you're weird when you are, they hear you from the other room reading aloud and reading to yourself, and meaning you're by yourself but you're reading aloud, you're reading to nobody, but really getting to a point to where when you read something, and I tell this to my students all the time, the audience does not want to be read to, they want to be told. And even though that there may be a script in front of you, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the concept of a teleprompter, where you have the script that's mounted on a one-way mirror in front of a lens. Even though the words are there for you, it's the way that you read those words that you don't come across as reading. And I use this mantra with my students all the time, that we're not reading these stories to the audience, but we're telling our stories to the audience, and we're selling the stories to the audience as well too. You need to sound like you know what you are talking about. The audience expects you, the audience has expectations. Even though they don't realize that they have such expectations, they do have expectations of people who are in front of the camera. And one of those expectations is this notion of competence, or at least perceived competence, meaning that you have to come across like you know what you are talking about. Because if you don't sound like you know what you're talking about, then your audience isn't going to believe at all that you know what you're talking about as well too. And so one thing to do is reading aloud over and over, but understanding how you read. I'm not just reading a sentence and reading the sentence through. I'm using the pace of my read. I'm using my voice inflection. Sometimes I'll speed up a little bit. Sometimes I'll slow down so that the audience knows what I'm saying. And this takes practice to develop these instincts, to be able to look at a script, to be able to dissect it, and to be able to present it to an audience that comes across in what I call a very conversational way, but still an authoritative way. Nicole, again, is one of my graduates. She got a job in Florida when she graduated at a news station down there, and has moved back up north where she was originally from, and is now the morning anchor at a station in Syracuse. As I said, we don't want to read your stories to your audience. Uh, you want to tell and sell, and by sell, meaning that you have to have a proper tone. You have to have the proper tone that you are presenting to your audience, meaning that you can't, in a newscast, be able to say, well, good morning, welcome to the morning news. A family is now homeless after a fire on the city's west side. That is that's a very inappropriate sell, and I'm exaggerating for effect here, but it's the ability to understand the content that you're delivering, and to assign the appropriate tone to that content. So if it is a story of a more serious nature, then you're presenting it in a more serious nature. If there's a bit of somberness to the story, the audience doesn't want robots by any means. And they want people to be able to help kind of convey the emotion that is necessary of the content that's being presented. So if it's a somber story, I've got to be able to take a little bit more of a somber tone, and that's much different than talking about the upcoming Kitten Bowl right here on Channel 5, to where I'm assigning the proper tone to the story, that I'm selling the story to the audience. I'm not reading the story, but I'm always telling and I'm always selling. Jay O'Brien is, again, another one of my students who is currently down in West Palm Beach. I expect within the next few years I will see him on the network level. He had extraordinary instincts coming into school, was able to develop those. When he graduated, went to a small market in Texas for a couple of years, and was hired into a much larger market in West Palm Beach, Florida. And as I said, he's quite good at what he does. Effective writing is an essential skill, and this notion of writing for an audience and to be clear and concise is very important. And if you have a desire to be an on-air personality, then you've got to really work on your writing skills and how to be able to say something and certainly I'm not awesome at it when I give lectures like this, but when I'm writing a script or writing something that's meant to be kind of presented to a mass audience in more of a formal way, I will be make sure that I'm getting rid of any superfluous words within there, that I'm being clear and concise, that I'm not having run-on sentences or using language that people don't really talk the way that they don't really talk. That I want to be come across as conversational. You have to be able to craft a story in a short time frame. A lot of times, in terms of television, news, sports, and even entertainment, you need to be able to turn around the story in a very short amount of time. Usually, within an hour or two of you presenting it to your mass audience. And so, the quicker and better you are as a writer, the more effective you will be as someone who's going to engage that audience, and to craft the stories in a way that the audience understands. Mia O'Brien is a sports anchor in Jacksonville, Florida. She loved sports coming into college. We do a lot of coverage of sports at our school, along with a lot of other programming that we offer as part of our student television station. Just to give a little plug here for Ithaca College. Ithaca College has the world's oldest student-run TV station. We're the oldest one. We started in 1958. We're older than every single cable network and most of the television stations that exist in the country. We've been doing this for a very long time up in the hills of upstate New York, and probably many of you have never heard of us, but we're not a giant school. By any means, we have about 7,000 students. I would consider us kind of a mama bear campus, and speaking in Goldilocks terms, where we're not some big giant university, but we produce a lot of people who work in media that come out of Ithaca College. David Muir, who anchors ABC World News Tonight, is one of our graduates. The Bob Iger, the man who runs all of Disney, graduated from Ithaca College. I have one of my students is the executive producer of TMZ Live. I have two of my students who write for Family Guy. I have a student who writes for Saturday Night Live. I have students that produce reality television shows, that edit shows. A lot of people come to Ithaca College because we take this kind of very unique approach to media education, in that we allow our students to start doing it from the moment that they arrive, and we have a large program. As I mentioned, we have 2,000 students within our school of communications. We're over a third of the entire college, and Mia was one of those people who really loved sports broadcasting. She came from a high school that had a very strong television program, and she was able to move right into kind of even taking a step up from her very strong program to what we offer at Ithaca College as well too. But Mia is a very accomplished person who relies heavily upon her writing skills. Practice doing what are called stand-ups and live shots. This is part of that daily practice as well too. And by practice, meaning that you got to kind of do things that make you feel stupid, in that you're practicing in front of your bedroom mirror with a hairbrush and pretending you're going live from a location. And I have my students practicing. We do exercises in class about pretending to be live on location, so that they can develop what is called an extemporaneous kind of approach, basically speaking from bullet points, that they don't have the script memorized. The script isn't written for them word for word, but they have 5 or 6 or 7 bullet points that they're able to talk through and deliver to the audience. As I said, learn to form those complete, concise, and cohesive thoughts easily by practice, practice, practice. And that is very much the key. Nick is another one of my former students who works in Providence, Rhode Island right now. Again, loved sports when he came to Ithaca College, and when he left, was able to start a job in broadcasting sports. You have to be able to establish credibility with your audience. What does that mean? It means that basically your audience has to believe what you're saying to them. And that's a very important aspect of being an on-air persona. If your audience doesn't believe you, then you're not going to have credibility. And if you don't have credibility, you're not going to have effective engagement of your audience. And it is very easy to lose that credibility with your audience through mispronunciation, certainly through misstating facts. And I'm not talking about kind of this kind of like CNN, Fox News type of bias here or bias there type of things, but it's this notion of I'm in front of a camera and I'm talking to you. And just as I hope that you take me as a credible person within my presentation, if I was if my eyes were shifty and looking around a bit, if I'm stumbling a lot, if I'm mispronouncing words, you're not going to have the same credibility as a more polished kind of presentation. Now, with that said, the audience does not expect nor really want perfection. And I tell my students this: the audience isn't looking for perfect people up there. They're looking for people that they can relate to. What they are looking for is better than average people, meaning that when you're speaking, not that you need this deep kind of broadcaster's voice, but at the same time, I have to be able to enunciate clearly. If I'm up here kind of speaking like this to you, it's not going to be very effective, very engaging, with the audience. But at the same time, I don't want to come up here and over enunciate. That I've got to find a balance that when I'm in front of a camera, so that I'm coming across as a credible person. Michelle is again another one of my former students. She started in a very small market when she graduated in northern Michigan, or southern Canada, as I liked to call it. And Michelle had to, quote unquote, pay her dues. She did 2 years there, 2 years in Maryland. She went down to Florida for 3.5 years, and she just got hired as a morning anchor in Raleigh, North Carolina. As I said, the audience does not want perfection, and they're not looking for that. They're looking for someone that they can relate to. Probably in some ways, many of you who are attending this maybe have seen a local news or television personality in your local, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, there's so and so, they're shopping. And it's like, yeah, okay, they do shop. I mean, people on television do shop, and they do eat in restaurants, and they do quote unquote normal human things. But there is this kind of like pseudo celebrityism that comes with this. But at the same time, they also want to feel like, hey, that person's talking to me, and there's someone that I can relate to. And the audience's ability to relate to you is very important. Julia is one of my students who was very interested in politics, and after graduating from Ithaca College, she went and got her master's degree in public policy at American University in Washington D.C., and is now a correspondent down in Washington D.C. because that was really her passion. You need to learn on. You need to have technical skills. The You don't have to be like a super tech head, but you do have to have the ability to shoot and edit. And if you're not comfortable with that, being an on-air personality, you have to be. Now we do have a lot of students who come to Ithaca College who have a desire to be on air, but they might not be as comfortable, operating the camera or editing on Premiere. And we utilize that time when they're in school to be able to give them those skills, because those are going to be required skills when they start their job, especially entry level jobs. You are going to be expected to have to go out with a camera and shoot and edit your own material. Now, again, in the age of TikTok and everything, people have become very good at shooting and editing in a lot of ways, but it's still that notion of being able to kind of operate a broadcast quality camera and to be able to learn how to edit that content very much. So you'll have to shoot, you'll have to edit, as well as upload, and be comfortable with this notion of kind of working in a digital environment. Josh is, as I mentioned before, one of my former students who is a play-by-play announcer for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, he didn't graduate and get that job. Josh went out to Illinois for a bit, got the position. Josh was very accomplished, and when I had him in school, I knew that he was going to go far. And when he was in Illinois, he was tapped for the Pittsburgh Penguins, kind of recruited him, and now he works for the Penguins. Here's the and people are going to judge you, and probably all of the participants are, very social media savvy and understand this notion of kind of like trolls and whatnot within social media. When you become a professional broadcaster and you are representing a station or a network, people are really going to troll you then, and you are going to constantly be judged by people who don't know you at all, and because they only get their perception of you, and there are two kind of polarizing aspects of the spectrum. There are those people who love you, who and to almost like, again, a stalkerish, creepy way, and then there are the people who hate you for, again, no logical or rational reason, but they hate you. And the notion that those polarizing aspects are going to happen is something that I talk to my students a lot about. Now, the vast majority of the audience operates in the middle of that spectrum, but again, it's this notion of that people are going to really, really, really like you, or people are going to really, really, really hate you, and there's not a lot that you can do to control that. What you try to quote unquote control is the perception of what the vast majority of the audience has. Women have it 9 million times worse than men when it comes to being judged when they're in front of the camera. And that's something that, again, I talk to my students about and make them acutely aware of. As a woman who's entering this, they will be much more unfairly judged than men, and it doesn't make it right by any means at all. But it is an unfortunate reality of when you get up in front of a soapbox, if you will, or you're presenting yourself on camera, you are opening yourself up for judgment. Shannon, again, one of my students who went to West Virginia. She did not want to go to West Virginia for her first job, but she went to West Virginia and worked there for 2 years, and now is working down in Fort Myers, Florida. Fame has a high price in a lot of ways, and I talk to my students a little bit about maybe consider changing your name for on air. In that, again, when you are putting yourself out there in the public, you are opening yourself to potential dangers. And so some of my students will take an on air last name. Certainly, the notion of protecting your personal identity on social media and whatnot is very important as well too. But knowing that, like, there's this kind of notion of glamour that's associated with people being on air, and that's true. But there is this kind of quote unquote dark side of it as well too, that people have to be aware of, and I talk to my students about this. Anne is worked in Binghamton for a number of years, Binghamton, New York, when she graduated, which is a small market, and she worked there for 4 years because they promoted her up to main anchor, but she just took a position in Norfolk, Virginia, working at a station there. Education and experience are important, uh, in that you will need a college degree to get a job within the field, and you have to demonstrate to people who are going to hire you that you kind of know how to do this, or at least have the potential to do this. And at Ithaca, we're very fortunate because we have such a strong program that many of our students graduate and they're 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of people going to other colleges and universities that don't have the type of media education that we offer. But it's not required, and there are plenty of people who are on television who don't necessarily have degrees in television or journalism, but they're very good at being able to engage in an audience. But having that experience, being able to, if you're in high school or even in middle school, being able to kind of go and job shadow, or if the ability to do an internship at a local station, to provide you with that kind of experience and exposure that is necessary for you to understand how this works. There is so much work that goes into just being on camera. For a lot of times, people are on camera for 10, 15 seconds if they're putting together a piece for the news, but the amount of work that goes into it. You're going to need what's called a resume reel. something that is going to get you noticed. And so I work a lot with especially my graduating seniors, in developing their resume reel to where they can showcase potential employers. This is what I look and like on camera, and this is what I sound like on camera, and here are my abilities. And a lot of times, for employers, they're looking for potential within my students before they kind of want to be able to hire them. And again, we're very fortunate that the Ithaca College name and the Park School of Communications carries a lot of weight within the field of media. And so when someone sees Ithaca College on a resume, or that they know that they're coming from a place that does this, and there's not as much training as required. This is not a get rich quick type of industry at all. There is a lot of money to be had, and many of you might be aware of the people on the national level who have multi-million dollar a year contracts, and that is, the salaries are getting lower and lower as time goes on, because a lot of it, because there's more and more content being created. There's not as much advertising dollars, but certainly the people, the Savannah Guthries, the David Muir. David Muir makes, $5 million a year, and that's a very good living to be able to make. Savannah Guthrie, I think, is at $8 million a year or something like that. And there are those salaries out there, but it is very competitive business. And typically, when you start low in the $22,000 to $28,000 a year range. You can't do this for the money. You have to do this for the passion. You have to love being able to tell stories and engage an audience in that way. If you're doing this to be able to kind of chase $1 million dream, listen, I'm not going to tell you you're not going to be successful, but I will say that it takes a lot of perseverance to get to that level. And you've got to sign contracts. Our students, when they graduate, will listen, you can make more money selling phones in a strip mall than you can a lot of times being an entry-level on-air personality. But you're not doing this for the money, and you have to sign a contract. That, many stations will require you to sign a 2 or 3 year contract. Why? Because they know that once you get experience, you'll be looking for a larger market or looking for a larger city to go to. And so, you've got to understand that this is not a huge money-making venture to start out with. There are those kind of higher pays out there, and even in local markets, your local top anchors will make a very good living depending on the size of city that you live in. Jamie DeWine, again, is one of my students. Started in a very small market. I think she was making $22,000 a year to begin with, and that's not a lot of money as a salary. But now she's moving up. She currently works in Albany, New York. Again, not making a ton of money, but she's making a better living. It's not too early to start to be preparing to be on air. Again, as I talked about before, get exposure by entering, volunteering, and also just watch a lot of people, and emulate the people that you like. And as I said, practice reading aloud, practice doing stand-ups. It's never too early to start kind of preparing for this. Mike is one of my students who started in a small market. He's a morning news reporter in Rochester right now, and he does a lot of feature pieces, which are lighter news, going to kind of like petting zoos or going to the new Froyo shop that is open, because he loved telling those kind of stories and engaging an audience. He'll do very well for himself, and he does make a living right now. But again, he isn't in this for the money. He's in it for because this is what he loves to do. Oh, sorry about that. Just hit that there. Let's see. And again, being on air is a performance. It is, but don't be somebody you are not. You have to be an exaggeration of yourself. In order to effectively be on air, you have to take yourself and kind of up it a notch, because television is an exaggeration. If you watch any Applebee's commercial, you've never seen anybody in Applebee's be that excited about getting their food as they are in an Applebee's commercial, because television is naturally an exaggeration. And when you're being an on-air performer, it's a natural exaggeration as well too, that you're doing. This goes back to the sell notion. You've got to be able to sell this stuff, and you've got to be able to, have your audience interested in your content, but don't be somebody you are not. The audience can pick up on that very quickly. Eddie, who works in Honolulu, Hawaii, along with one of my other students out there, it came into school and had such a passion for wanting to be on air. And truthfully, Eddie, and he will admit this, Eddie was not polished at all when he came to Ithaca College, but he had passion and he had perseverance. And we worked with him. His first job was in North Dakota and or I'm sorry, Nebraska. I apologize. His first job was in Nebraska, and he had never been outside of New York. And now he loves his life in Hawaii. He's telling stories and engaging an audience. And so those are some tips that I have for you for starting your on-air career. I hope they've been a little bit helpful for you. If you do have any questions or would like some more clarification, we do have a few more minutes within our session. You can feel free to either put them in the chat or they can be conveyed to me through our moderator.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them down in the chat.
If you don't have questions, I'm going to be forced to do my Barney the dinosaur impersonation. And none of us wants that, do we, Barney?
Oh, no, we don't. Oh, hi, everybody. I'm so happy that you came to the session today.
It's
Wow.
yeah, it's a sad skill that I have, and I don't know why I was given this talent to speak exactly like Barney the dinosaur. But how do we find internships at broadcast stations? That's a very good question. The simple answer is call the station. And be able to, a lot of times on the website, a lot of them will, if you're in middle school or in high school, a lot of them do require kind of that you're a college student to be able to do a formal internship. But my sense is that if you contact the stations and let them know that you're interested in coming in and learning more about their station, that they will be agreeable to being able to bring you in at least, maybe for a day or so. But I've known a lot of my, if you are persistent and demonstrate, like I said, passion as well too, that you can come in as an intern while you are in high school. What kind of experience should we already have by college? You don't have to have any experience before you come to college. It's not absolutely necessary for this. College is really the time where you'll start to kind of develop the beginnings of those on-air skills. But I think, listen, the more you do this earlier, the better you will be. Just as like an athlete who starts training younger is going to naturally be a bit more accomplished when they reach adulthood. But it's not necessary that you should have to have experience before you come into college. At Ithaca College, we do not require, although a lot of our students do come from media programs, and certainly that's why we love to come to the Student Television Network, and we'll be present at the college fair coming up this Saturday afternoon. And we like to touch base with a lot of students who have these programs and want to come to a college that has a very strong program and isn't going to make you wait to get involved. That's one aspect of Ithaca College that I am very proud of, is that you can start doing this stuff from the moment that you arrive. It's not a seniors only type of thing, and we have students taking classes from the moment that they arrive, as well as being involved in our student media. But no, it's not really any type of experience that you should have before you go to college. But if you have aspirations of this, and like I said, you're in high school or even middle school, start practicing this stuff. Get involved in the activities that are being offered at your schools, and really take advantage of the opportunities that are being presented to you.
David has a question in the Q&A.
Sure.
What
Okay.
would be the biggest skill you would recommend for anchoring?
For anchoring, the biggest skill is the ability to not sound like you are reading, but that you are telling and that you're selling. And to really work on the ability to read a script, but to come across as I am not reading you this script and telling you about the car crash that happened on Route 81 this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Like, no, that's not engaging for an audience. It's like, well, Route 81 was closed down for over 4 hours this afternoon as crews had to make quick work after a 9-car pileup that left 2 people injured and had to be taken to the hospital. That's me telling you more about this and selling it, and not necessarily kind of coming across as reading. So for those of you who want to be anchors, well, one, be a reporter first, because that is typically the step that you take. You've got to understand how to be a reporter and to go out and tell stories and to be enterprising about stories as well too. And by enterprising, I mean going out and finding stories that an audience would be that would find interesting, and being able to tell the audience that story, and being a successful reporter, and then transitioning that into being an effective anchor. But from a purely anchor perspective, it's that ability to tell and sell stories. Tips for ad libs while anchoring. Uh, that's the hard. My favorite part of my, I have a prompter assignment where I have my students read off of a prompter, and I have them in teams of 2. And my favorite part is making them do what's called happy talk at the end, because it is so hard to do without coming across as corny or saying something weird or stupid within it. And that just comes with one, familiarity with the person that you're anchoring with. And in the early goings, I always tell my students, look, you need to talk, you need to kind of rehearse this a little bit. I'm going to say this, you're going to say that, and I'm going to say a little bit of this, in the sense of, that ad-libbing, that happy talk isn't as ad-libbed as you might think it is. Now, the more seasoned the professional, the easier it is for them to be able to ad-lib. And I kind of draw the analogy of it's dancing with somebody. When you first learn to dance with somebody, you've got to kind of like, learn the steps. But when you've been doing it for a while, you kind of know the moves of each other person, of each other rather, and the other person. Let's see, what kind of aspiring students show potential? The aspiring students who show potential are the ones who have those kind of natural instincts of, I'm not reading this story, but I've broken the story down into these little phrases, and I'm telling these little phrases to the audience, that I'm understanding this notion of inflection by utilizing inflection as a means of emphasis, and not just because I said a word louder, that's emphasis, but rather the inflection that I'm putting on it within the context of the sentence. The fact that people are comfortable in front of a camera and are able to kind of, again, move a little bit. Sometimes I see students who come on air, and I talk to them like they have these dead eyes, where they're just looking at the camera like this, and they're reading like this, like they're in some sort of hostage video or something. And that's not engaging for the audience. It's the ability to understand, hey, if there's something in the script, then I'm shaking my head at it, or I'm excited. Now, again, I'm exaggerating for effect, but it's the I use this phrase a lot when I'm talking to my students, is understanding the subtlety of exaggeration, that you have to exaggerate things, but you have to do so in a subtle way, but that still is engaging for the audience. Do you repeat tongue twisters or practice any breathing exercises before you go on air? Yes. And I do have a list of tongue twisters that I give to my students. And I talk to my students about even like ooh, ee, ah, ooh, ee, ah, ooh, ee, ah. Like, you sound like a moron when you're in the hall doing that. But it's necessary to kind of warm up your voice. Your voice is a muscle, and it's got to be warmed up. And I practice, I give them tongue twisters. Peter picked a peck of pickled peppers. Again, I've been out of practice a little bit, but when I go on air, I will practice those things and do those, so that I have more quote unquote control over my tongue, control over my mouth, so to speak, but to practice that. And then the breathing, that's another thing that I talk to my students a lot. Sometimes I'll have students who don't breathe, and they'll be talking and talking and talking, and they talk and talk, and they're reading and reading and reading, and then at the end of the story they go it's the ability to take what I call little dolphin breaths, that in the sentence I'm saying the sentence in such a way, but I've got that little pause there and for emphasis, and that allows me to take these little breaths in between that I'm not just kind of going into these like type of breaths that they make. What else? Other questions? I can do Barney again if people want, but you don't.
Any last questions? That's a terrific Barney impression, though, I have to
Oh,
say.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think you're all superty duper.
I can also do I can do Kermit the Frog, but that one takes a little bit more of my neck to do, and that one hurts here. I'll give you guys a little bit for this. I'm glad this is being recorded, by the way.
Hi ho, this is Kermit the Frog, and we're at the STN Zoom conference, and I hope some of you found this session to be beneficial.
So those are just some of the
Terrific.
voices that my students have to endure all the time.
Oh,
So.
I'm sure that keeps them on their toes, though.
Well, it does. It does something to them. So,
All right.
well, thank you all very much for attending the conference. I will put my I'll put my email in the chat. If you do have any questions for me, as I mentioned, I will be at the college fair this Saturday. I forget what time because it's Pacific time, and but we will be there, and I will be there representing Ithaca College. So if you do have any questions or anything, certainly feel free to swing by there, or like I said, you may shoot me an email, and I'll just give myself a little.
Yeah, thanks for reminding everybody about the college fair. So next Saturday, before the closing ceremonies, STN is going to have a college fair set up. And so if you want more information on Ithaca College and their program, definitely stop by that virtual booth. I guess we're going to have a Zoom room, I think, for that.
Yes, I believe
And,
so. Yes.
Yeah, and check out Peter on TikTok, and maybe we'll hear more of those Barney.
If you have nothing better to do with your time, then check that out, because
All
it's
right.
an insane waste of time. But thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you attending, and good luck with the rest of the conference.
All right. Thanks everybody for attending, and thank you, Peter. We really, really appreciate you spending some
Absolutely,
time today.
it was fun. Thank you.